Hello and welcome to the program. I am DEJI360. Now, last week we talked about the controversial pension of Akwa Ibom, that's governor's pension now of Akwa Ibom State. And of course, as you all know, the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio, came under severe criticism. And you know what? He's decided to review the law. But then, how speedily would this review be done? We do not know. Remember, it took just 13 days to actually pass the new pension law in Akwa Ibom State. So we don't know if it's going to take another 13 days. But, you know, we're counting for the governor. It's close to a week now since the governor said the pension scheme will be reviewed. So far, no review has been carried out. Well, we've not seen the review so far. We're still waiting. But then the governor gave his reaction. Let's take a look at the governor's reaction now. Now, the first thing he said was, he said the ceiling which was pegged. Now, he was talking about the 100 million naira per annum for medical treatment of course, an ex-governor. And he said the ceiling which was pegged at 100 million naira per annum for former governors and 50 million naira per annum for former deputy governors was never meant to be given to either in part or in whole to anybody at any time for any reason. It was meant to be paid to health institutions involved in the treatment of the former governor or former deputy governors and their spouses. It was therefore deliberate falsehood and organized misinformation to claim that the said money will be paid to former governors or deputy governors every year. So basically what he is trying to say is that, well, the 100 million naira provided for medical treatment now for the governors, former governors now and their spouses, as well as deputy governors and their spouses, 100 of course for former governors and 100 million, yeah, for former governors and 50 million for of course the former deputy governor, that the money was actually not meant to be given to these individuals, that the money was supposed to be paid to you know, health institutions where these governors former governors, I should say, would have been treated. Now, he did not end there. He said, truth has been under siege, and today I have decided that we should leave this evil siege by proposing to the House of Assembly that the parts of the amendments putting a 100 million naira ceiling and a 50 million naira ceiling on the medical treatment of former governors and former deputy governors. So basically saying he's proposing to the House to amend that section and that the cap will be removed. So in other words, what the governor was actually trying to say was that now there's no cap at all. The law will just simply say provide for medical treatment for the former governors. And in that case, what the governor is arguing is that, you know, the amount could go to 100 million, 200 million. It just doesn't mean, because there's no cap on it. Now, Akwa Ibom State generating so much controversy, its pension law, we decided to take a look at some other states just to find out if Akwa Ibom is actually the worst culprits when it comes to the provision of pensions now for former governors and their deputies. Let's take a look at another state, Kwara State. Let's take a look. What exactly does it... Now, the law was actually reviewed in 2010 by then Governor Bukola Saraki, who, of course, is a senator now. He's in the Senate and, of course, drawing salary. Now, what does it provide? It provides for pension, life pension, or it equivalent now. No, pension for life equivalent to the incumbent salary. So whatever the current governor is earning is what the former governor, Governor Bukola Saraki, would be earning as his pension every month. And then it says the governor is entitled to a total of 5 cars. Sorry, it should be 5 cars altogether to be replaceable every 3 years. So among these 5 cars, you have utility vehicles and the others. Then he's also entitled to a well-furnished 5-bedroom duplex. He should get furniture allowance, 300% of his salary every 2 years. He should have domestic 5 domestic staff. These 5 domestic staff now should be pensionable. Then he should have 8 policemen, 3 SSS operatives, one of which must be a female. For governor, of course, there's free medicals for governor, deputy governor, and their families. Now there's no cap. It just says free medicals. Now, how much will this be? We do not know. And he gets a 30-day annual vacation abroad with a 30-day ESTA code. So if the governor was traveling, former Governor Bukola Saraki, for instance, if he was to travel abroad, he's entitled to get a 30-day vacation with 30-day ESTA codes. Remember, he's a senator. He also gets a car maintenance allowance, which is will be 30% 20% of his salary. Utilities, 20% of his salary. Entertainment, 10% of salary. House maintenance, of course, that same house that the state government would provide for him, the state government will have to maintain it, 10% of his salary. And who are the current beneficiaries? Of course, we have Senators Saraki and Lafiaji. Both of them are drawing. They are actually enjoying that pension as we speak. Now, of course, there's been some kind of reaction. Rex Olawoye, who is the PDP spokesman in Kwara State, here's his reaction. He said, a careful calculation of what Mr. Saraki has received both in cash and kind from the sweat of the poor people of Kwara State has revealed a pension benefit that has run into over 3 billion naira in the last 3 years, in addition to millions of naira he draws monthly as a senator representing the same state. Now, we decided to take a look at one other state. That's a state where we are, Lagos State. And you wouldn't believe it. I would say we found it to be probably the most controversial or probably the worst because, as a matter of fact, the provisions, I would say the provisions are even far higher than what is contained in that of Akwa Ibom State. Now, should Governor Babatunde Fashola, of course, as we know, he'll be leaving office in 2015. So when he leaves office, what is he supposed to get? Remember, you have former Governor Bola Tinubu, so it means he's enjoying all of this. Now, this is what, if Governor Babatunde Fashola leaves office today, this is what he'll be getting. 100% annual basic salary now of incumbent salary for life. So whatever the current governor is earning is what he would be getting, which is 100%. He's going to get that for life. The governor gets 6 new cars every 3 years. I mean, at that rate, you would say, well, the governor may soon become a car dealer, because if you get 6 cars every 3 years, do the calculation yourself. Over the course of, say, 12 years, he would have a lot of cars to sell. Then the deputy governor gets 5 cars every 3 years, and a house. The governor, now this is for the governor. The governor gets a house in Lagos and one in Abuja. And what does the deputy governor get? The deputy governor gets 1 house in Lagos only. Now, the governor and, of course, the deputy governor and their family are entitled to free medical health care, and their family, free medical health care. Now, for life. There's no cap. There's no provision. It could be 10 million. It could be 5 million. It could be 100 million, 200. No cap at all. Now, there's also provision for cook, steward, gardener, and other domestic staff. All of them pensionable for the governor. And furniture allowance, he gets 300% of annual basic salary every 2 years. House maintenance is 10% of annual basic salary. The governor's security, well, the governor is entitled, the former governor now, he is entitled to 2 SSS operatives, or 1, of course, a female officer, and then 8 policemen. Now, imagine how many policemen we have in this country. Now, you have these former governors getting 8 of them. 8, just to protect them. Then you can imagine how many policemen would have left to protect the citizens. The deputy governor now gets, for security now, 1 SSS operative and 2 policemen. Now, the governor gets for PA, 25% of annual basic salary, car maintenance, of course, those 6 cars. 30% of annual basic salary, entertainment 10% of annual basic salary, utility 20% of annual basic salary, and the drivers who will be driving those 6 cars must be pensionable, and there's no limit to the number. And then you have severance benefits. Well, we don't know, but the governor, if Babatunde Fashola leaves office next year, of course, he'll be entitled to a severance benefit. And, you know, as I said, former Governor Bola Tinubu is he's getting this pension. When Babatunde Fashola leaves office, he'd be entitled to all of that. And, well, we do not know if the people of Lagos State were actually consulted, if there was a public hearing for the people of Lagos State to make their own contribution. But we just felt it was necessary to bring all of this to you, so that you know what your former governors are getting, and so that you know what the current governors will be getting when they leave office. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, well, a lawyer will join us to analyze all of this and take a deeper look at the pensions our governors are collecting. Stay with us, don't go away. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ, if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down. explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions. Welcome back, and joining me on the program right now to speak on this controversial pensions former governors are drawing from various states now is a lawyer, Mr. Jitu Ogunye. Mr. Ogunye, thank you very much for joining us on the program. I mean, looking at those figures, it must feel very cool to be governor. Tell me you want to be governor.
No.
You don't want to run for office?
No, it's an illicit take. It's outrageous. In the midst of
biting poverty,
crippling, asphyxiating and suffocating poverty, that state executives who are no longer in power can continue to draw such humongous amounts
for the rest of their lives.
For the rest of their life and for their families. It's unconscionable, it's immoral, it's even unconstitutional, because the Constitution, don't forget, provides that the state shall abolish all acts of corruption and abuse of power. And I'm referring to Section 15, subsection 5 of the Constitution. So for me, it's not something that one would want to partake.
Shouldn't a laborer get his just wage at the end? That would be the argument of some.
No. Who are the laborers here? And what are the wages? What is going on is that after transiting, after leaving office, these guys are insisting that they have to continue to be remunerated as if they are still in power. Both in terms of the security detail, the paraphernalia of office, the officialdom, the number of domestic staff, and so on and so forth. They want to continue to run a state after they've left the office of a state governor. And that's not acceptable. There is no way any sane society can accept this kind of profligacy.
I mean, you look at that of Lagos State, for instance. We could as well say, or just safely assume that some time ago when the former governor of the state was ill and was in London for a very long time, the state probably paid for that.
Absolutely. Under that law. That's what had happened. Absolutely.
And this is what most people don't know.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, it is very interesting that the localized malady in Akwa Ibom State has now, you know, reopened this debate about the propriety, the legitimacy, the legality, and the acceptability or otherwise of this kind of thing that is going on. Because as we now found out, it's not only Akwa Ibom State, there is a culprit state, Lagos State, Kwara State, Zamfara State, Gombe State, River State. All of them are complicit in this illicit take. I call it illicit because what is going on, if you ask me, is an unconscionable attempt to feudalize, and I'm using my words carefully, democracy. Democracy and feudalism are not one and the same thing. But when people who claim that they've just run a democratic process while they were in power, you know, tinker with the law or make a law to ensure that once they've left office, the state and the citizens continue to pay them for services not rendered. That's my point. When you're a governor for 4 years, or you're a governor for 8 years, and you've left office, political office holders, these are not career positions. We're not talking about the teacher. We're not talking about a soldier who spent 35 years. We're not talking about a professor. We're not talking about somebody in the health services, a doctor who spent 35 years in the public service. We're talking about people who got elected, who took it upon themselves to serve.
Exactly.
So why should they take this kind of a kind cut from the resources of the state.
And it's quite an irony that they're the ones making the law.
Exactly. So when they then leave office and they then, you know, warehouse this kind of illicit take. I'm using the word again. You know, one can then get the impression that these people are just thinking about themselves and they're not thinking about the ordinary people.
I mean, I want you to react to this other aspect of it. A governor being entitled to 30 days vacation abroad and 30-day estate.
Let me just break it down. You know, I have argued and I'm saying that the kind of packages they've warehoused for themselves are not even acceptable if they're still in government. It's not. For example, why will a governor insist, a sitting governor, governing a state, insist that he should be given 30 days off his work abroad to receive ESTA codes and all that, all expenses paid? Have you ever heard of the President of the United States of America going outside the shores of the United States of America on vacation? No. There is a resort that they usually go to, Mother's Vineyard or something, in the United States, if I get the names correctly. That's how it is done. Or going to Hawaii. But now these people...
Maybe you haven't got resorts here, so...
No. This is not...
It's so funny.
It's tragic. It's tragic. It's tragic. It's not funny. So for a governor to now insist, after he's left office, that he must continue to get the kind of...
every year.
Salaries, remunerations, emoluments that he ordinarily ought not to be entitled to, even while he's serving the state, presumably serving. Is so surprising. And so for me, a governor is not a king. And that's why I use the word feudalizing the democratic space. A governor is not a monarch. He is just a governor. He's supposed to be a Democrat. And so, if you're a Democrat, and you know that in this country, there is no top civil servant that earns
that's quite true.
That kind of money. And even post-retirement, they die on the queue begging for pensions. Their pensions are stolen. And those who steal this pension just take a walk. Now, if you are in that kind of society and these governors are doing this, it's nothing but privatization of our collective patrimony. And I think that all these laws ought to be shut down.
What do you make of the argument of the Akwa Ibom State governor? I mean, to some extent, you could say his argument is valid. You know, he said before the law was amended, there was no cap at all on what a former governor gets for medical treatment. And so he decided to cap it at 100 million naira. But you look at the other states, of course, there's no cap.
No, but that's cheeky. How did he arrive at that 100 million naira? Were there instances of former state governor, Atta and all that, who have spent near 100 million naira as to know how to cap it? What was the empirical basis for capping it for 100 million? Why didn't he cap it 20 million or 10 million or 5 million? Okay? So, and why can't he even be tied to the kind of ailment that you're talking about? So, the coming back to say that, yes, now I'm trying to help. I'm trying to cap it. I'm trying to be frugal. But now that has generated an outcry, so I won't cap it no more. And going about this in a way as if he has the almighty power to turn on and off the legislative process.
That would be the impression we're getting.
It's annoying.
And isn't that what
it's annoying? And that the legislators are there. That yes, now that they are saying this, I'm sending it back to you. I'm giving you instruction to do that. That's not how you run a democracy. Democracy has style. It has its form. It has its substance also. And so, even if that's true, a governor cannot come across as to say that yes, I'm a garrison commander here. It's sad. So for me, saying that it's coming back to cap it, it's not rendering any service to the people of Akwa Ibom State.
Let's leave the issue of pension now and turn to River State. Of course, as you know, there is a crisis in the River State judiciary. The NJC's, appointed an administrative judge to oversee the administration of justice in that state. And of course, the state government saying it is not going to abide by the decision of the NJC, and that it has already appointed a chief judge for the state. All this back and forth. Some people say, well, it's like a judiciary is being turned on its head and all of that. What's your take on what is happening there?
My take is that, most unfortunately and very sadly, the NJC has not proceeded the way it ought to have proceeded in handling the River State situation. Especially
when you consider the fact that there was a court judgment against the NJC.
Even before that, how did this evolve? The Judicial Service Commission in River State made a recommendation to the NJC saying that Justice PNC Agumago should be the #1 person to be recommended, and Justice the judge favored by the NJC as #2. I think I will remember the name in a short while. And so this list was forwarded to the NJC, and the NJC rejected Justice Agumago as #1 and went for the other justice. And of course, the appointing authority under Section 271 of the Constitution is the governor. Now, for a chief judge, 4 institutions must participate in the process, 4 centers. The State Judicial Service Commission that must recommend to the NJC that must consider and in turn recommend to the governor for appointment. Before the governor will appoint, the House of Assembly must ratify. Now, the NJC is not the only institution in the process to ensure that a particular candidate, a particular person becomes the CJ. The governor must appoint, the House must ratify. In this case, the NJC rejected the person highly recommended to occupy that position on the twin principle of, it's not the most senior judge in the High Court, and that he will not be allowed to cross over from a customary court of appeal and all that. And so the state said no, the state balked. And the matter then went to court, and of course there's a judgment of the High Court, and the matter is now on appeal. Now, in the face of all this, the NJC keeps sitting and keeps dishing out directives and punishment sanctions, suspension, and all that. Even in the case of the suspension, which is still in court now, what the NJC does as a recommending body, even whilst exercising its disciplinary powers, is to recommend a disciplinary action to the authority that has the power to implement. For example, Justice Salami. For example, Justice Talba in the pension scam case, recommend to the executive, and the executive there accept. In the case at hand, in River State, the NJC directly suspended, and that is being challenged. So when you look at all that, the question that comes to the fore is it all about ensuring that the judiciary is independent, which should be the primary focus of the NJC? Or is it about partisanship? Is it about favoring a particular candidate or being sold on a particular candidate that doesn't, enjoy the support of the governor, the House of Assembly, and the State Judicial Service Commission? Or are there other things that we do not know? Because if it is about ensuring that the judiciary is independent, the judiciary continues to carry on its functions, it ought not to be this problematic.
It's quite unfortunate what is happening in that state.
Yeah.
Really quite unfortunate. We have to thank you for coming on the program, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Well, let's just hope the crisis in River State is resolved.
We hope so, and I hope that both the NJC if you ask me, matters are being litigated. My recommendation would be that the NJC
should cease fire for now.
River State Judiciary, River State Executive, and House of Assembly should go into a meeting and try to resolve this matter. And there are several ways of resolving this matter, including...
Maybe the issue is just beyond all of them. Maybe there's someone somewhere...
Including the possibility of elevation. For example, if you have a judge that you are so sold on and you like her so much, elevate her to the Court of Appeal and use that to resolve the problem.
I think I understand what you're talking about. Let's just hope there's nobody somewhere at the very top, you know, manipulating the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it on the program. We thank you very much for joining us. We're back again next week. I am DEJI360. We'll see you then.